God's Hookup Show with your host, Dr. Barbara Young. We are very glad you joined us today. As Christians, we often talk about experiencing God directly in our lives. Well, this show features up-close and personal interviews with men and women from all professions and all walks of life. They will share their stories about unexplainable blessings, extraordinary miracles, healings, and encounters that can only be attributed to a God's hookup. God's Hookup Show will bring joy, hope, enlightenment, and encouragement from the many stories you will hear and may relate to that will inspire you to share your God's hookup story. Make sure to like and share with your family and friends. Now, to my guest today. Hello out there, and I have my beautiful guest today, Ann Bennett. Hi, Ann. Hi, Ann. It's good to have you on the show today.
So much for the invitation. I feel very blessed.
Well, let me just tell you that my guest today, she is founder of Renegade Branding, an international speaker. She's a best-selling author, coach, and brand profit builder. Ann uses her marketing and branding genius to help women entrepreneurs and a few good men build their standout personal brands and boost their profits. So, Ann, we are so happy to have you on the show today to share your God's hookup story. So tell us a little bit about your story.
My story. So great, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those very, very clear September mornings in New York City where we call it the California days, because if you know anything about New York, it's always gray. Pretty much most of the time. I'm coming out of my favorite coffee store in the morning with my latte in hand. I'm marching up Fifth Avenue because I'm on my way to get on the subway and head up to 42nd Street where I was working at Vogue magazine. So I'm marching up, and all of a sudden I notice a gathering of people on the corner looking up. And I'm thinking, the only time you see a gathering of people in New York looking up is they're tourists, right? Everyone's like, oh, look at the big buildings. Oh my goodness. So I don't know, that day, something was weird about it. Something was strange about it. So I looked up to the left to see the first plane hit the World Trade Centers. I stood frozen.
Wow.
I was frozen on the cement. It was like I was stuck in cement. I could not take my eyes off of what I was seeing. I have a lot of friends, like many of us do and did at the time, working there. It was like, I liken it to a nightmare. And also I think of things as in paradox. So it was a nightmare and it was a miracle all in the same time. And as I made my way up Fifth Avenue, I was just tears streaming down my face, and people were starting to come out of the buildings and notice what was happening. But I was in complete shock. So I was just walking. When I got to 23rd Street, there's a park. And I went into the park and sat down on a park bench. And that's when I encountered the first angel. A man, a tall, dark man, African-American, came and sat down on the bench and put his arms around me as I was weeping and just comforted me in that moment. We probably paused there. I probably was there with this man, very generous, gracious man, 10 or 15 minutes. I just needed someone to be there, to be with me during that moment. And of course, I was marching to work. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to head to work. So I'm walking up Fifth Avenue. So I keep walking up Fifth Avenue. And about the time I got to 34th Street, I turned to see the buildings fall and
Oh
just
my
a
God.
big plume of smoke that covered everyone and covered everything. So I kept marching along and I got up to 42nd Street where the Vogue building is, and I encountered another man. This time the man was wearing a three-piece business suit. He looked really coiffed. The other man that comforted me just was wearing jeans and a t-shirt. This man was wearing a full suit and standing about 6'4", another black man. We held each other in each other's arms and wept together around the situation. He said, I just talked to my parents and another plane has hit the Pentagon. I didn't know what to say or what to do, but we just stood there as two human beings having this traumatic experience. And I'm so grateful that God sent me these two fabulous men, because there is nothing like being held by a man during crisis. So, of course, I marched on. I got up to Vogue. It was on the 45th floor, I believe, of the building, and no one was there. Anna had sent everyone home. So I was like in complete shock. I'm like, ooh, I don't know where to go or what to do. So I heard this voice, as we often do, intuition, God. I heard this voice that said, go to Barry's house. My friend Barry is the only one I know in the whole city who has a doorman, okay? And she was downtown, so I started walking downtown, and as I did, people popped open the doors of their cars and had turned on the radios. So there was no cell phone, there was no nothing. It was just all of us together as a community in the street, just flooded with people telling each other what was going on, what was happening, how they could get home, what they should do. It was like a miracle in and of itself. But when I got to Barry's house, I walked probably, I don't know, a couple miles, mile and a half, 2 miles to Barry's. There was the doorman, and he just let me up. I felt very taken care of. And then it was like, where's my friends? What happened to my friends? Where is everyone? There was no way to know where anybody was. And one by one, as the hours ticked off, all of my personal friends, my close friends, one by one, they were buzzing up and coming to Barry's house. So as it turned out, all of us were able to be with each other. Even though we were scattered all over New York and working in different places, we all ended up together. And for me, that's a complete miracle. That whole scenario, plus the experience being that close and that intense to something like that, for me, it changed my entire life, changed my DNA. I was like this power chick that worked at Vogue, and I really cared about fashion and all this stuff, and I didn't care anymore. It became really unimportant. And that's how I ended up doing the work that I do today, which is really empowering women mostly, and some men, to really step into who they are and forget all the other stuff that really doesn't matter.
And I have a question too. This is a remarkable story that really I've known you for some time, and you really never shared this story. Have you ever shared this story before?
I never have shared this story in public. I share snippets sometimes, little condensed versions in my talks, but I never talk about the real experience of it.
Yeah.
The real transformation, if you will, the sense of horror. Really, there was a sense of I have nightmares as a young kid, as a teenager. I used to have nightmares all the time, and it was like that times 10, because it was real. I was alive. I knew I wasn't dreaming,
Yes.
but it seemed impossible it seemed like we had gone to war. We had been attacked. We were going to war. And I honestly, it wipes out everything that you think is important in your life.
I think so. Now, how did you, my question is, you met not one, but two angels. How did you, surmise they were angels?
Well, Barbara, that's a really good question because to me, we all are angels for each other. We all bring about and show up in moments for another person as an angel, as someone who is tender or loving, or if you're very upset, they're very compassionate. And my belief is that we all interact that way, but until we're in these very traumatic types of situations, we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable like that.
That's true. But could you just sense, and it's interesting that both of them were Black men. I one really tall.
Yeah, and very coiffed. I mean, like he was a Wall Street guy or kind of, he could have been a CEO of one of the businesses up on 42nd. I have no idea who he was. But you could tell he was very, very educated.
Mm-hmm.
The other angel was more like, I wouldn't say he was a street person. He wasn't a street person, but he was just more relaxed. Obviously, it's the beginning of the day. So if he was working somewhere, he was hanging out in the park. And he offered me a lot of water.
There are many stories about angels who appear on earth, who actually walk the earth, that are not, like with halos and white gauzy robes and what we would think of or envision as angels. And so it was so refreshing, because I know that you've not shared that particular part of your story. But the most important thing is that's what this show is about. Individuals from every walk of life, every professions, who have had a God hookup experience. And it appears from what you're saying, that hookup experience changed your whole life, and really your life purpose for what you're doing today, to help so many individuals, men and women and men, to help change their lives. So, Anne, it's a remarkable story, and I'm glad that we're able to share this in the universe. This is global, in the universe, because right now we know that people need hope, they need encouragement, they need enlightenment, that even in the darkest hour, we're going through a very challenging time now. What are you saying to your tribe? Because you went through a challenging time. I mean, can you imagine seeing, the planes hit the buildings, and then to hear the Pentagon has been hit, and you're walking on the streets of New York? I mean, how real is that? And so here we are going through this situation where people are dying of this COVID-19.
Well, I have to say, Barbara, again, we are in a time of growth as humanity. We're in a time of expansion. We're in a time when things are falling away that are not important. The more I'm isolated from my friends and my family, the more important they become to me. Wow. The more I see my own, I think of myself as like, independent woman of the world kind of deal, right?
Right.
I start to see the interaction, the interconnection, the community that is so important to all of us. And how can we adjust what it is we're doing to do it a different way, So with 9/11, it changed my entire life. I stopped focusing out and I started focusing in on what makes me unique. What is it about me that I could share with people and make a contribution? And I think we're in a very similar time. We see lots of people upset. I've seen more people fighting at the coffee store in the morning than anywhere. screaming and yelling about, I'm not sure what, other than I understand people are very stressed and need to blow off, some energy. And so, it's a time where it requires us to step up and be more gracious, more loving, more tender with ourselves and with the other people around us.
Do you find, and I'm sort of asking this question, because I think it's timely too, that people are being more loving, or do we find that they're being more agitated or anxious in general?
Oh my God, in general, I'm anxious all the time. I mean, really, seriously, I have to really focus myself, right?
Yeah.
Sit down and understand that what we're going through is more of like God's way of having us expand.
Right. Absolutely.
God's way of bringing us to a higher level of consciousness of who we are and what we're here to do. Because we were made on purpose for a purpose.
Absolutely.
And so when people don't have that focus for themselves in this time, it can be extremely difficult. And it's to really, I call it perturbation. It was Buckminster Fuller who talks about perturbation is pressure. Something grows when it's under pressure. It doesn't grow when it's like, woo, it's really easy to get through the earth and grow and be a flower.
Yes.
Or a tree. It doesn't grow. It has to have the pressure. So what we're actually experiencing is one of those times. And I'm actually excited about people marching in the streets, people deciding they're not going to put up with stuff that has not worked for this country for hundreds of years. And they're just like, I've been waiting, actually, a child of the 60s myself, and I've marched in every march possible. Human rights, gay rights, rights, everything that has to do with humanity and human rights, I have been involved in. And it's really a miracle time. This is a miracle time. It doesn't look like
love that.
But it's actually,
maybe we should have a tagline that says, it's a miracle time. And God is still in the miracle working business. And that's why I'm so delighted to have women and men like you from all walks of life to talk about their God hooks up stories. Because the man is still working today, let me tell you, in many ways. And I wanted to say to you listeners out there, be careful. The Bible says in 1 Peter, be careful, for you might entertain an angel unawares. So they come in many different forms, sizes, shapes, ethnicities, as Anne had an encounter with 2 angels. And so I just want to thank you, Anne, for sharing that story today. Really, truly, you are a remarkable woman. And I wish you all the best. Yes, because you have a great tribe of women who love you and men and that you're working with. And so I really want to thank you and hope you will continue to somehow integrate that story in as you share your message, because the world needs to hear that there are things and that it really did change your life. So thank you so much today for being on the show. I'm so excited. I finally got Anne Bennett. Anne Bennett. Love her energy, love her smile. And if any of you would like to be a guest on the show, you can contact me at Dr. B at godshookups.com. So call, or well, you can actually look at this show every Friday, because we have a show every Friday at 11:30, 1:30 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. I have 2 guests coming on today you will not want to miss. Both of these young women who are coming on today, Miss Hattie Hill, who's the CEO of TD Jakes Foundation, and we have Lisa Margolis, who is an entrepreneur. And both of them have some incredible stories. So you'll want to hear their stories today. So Anne, I just want to say blessings to you. You have been a great, great guest today. And this is so wonderful. So I want to wish you all the blessings. And as we close the show today, remember, God is still in the miracle working business, and he's in the hookup business. So I want to thank all of you today for listening.